Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This conference has been awesome so far. All the talks have been excellent, so I'm really happy to be able to present on this. So I'm going to be talking a bit about random number generation and specifically like randomly generated puzzles. This is like a technique that I've been using lately to design puzzle games. So I've been releasing my games online for several years now, but like lately I've been really excited about making a game that can make its own puzzles by itself. Um, so let's get into that. First of all, I want to just like highlight some benefits of playtesting your own game. So you should be playtesting your own game that you develop, right? So first of all, it's worth noting that games are hard to create, right? Any game developer will agree. Games are hard to make and hard to finish making. So it's important that you love your own design. So you need to play your own game and make sure that you love it. Also, the more that you playtest your game, the more you can brainstorm and think of new things to try, new mechanics to add. And you can also ensure different metrics in your game, consistency and progression and whatnot. Also, you're often your own harshest critic, for better or for worse. So if you have someone that's playtesting your game live, someone else, they might like withhold some feedback because they want to be kind to your feelings. But if you're playtesting your own game, you can tell yourself however harsh critique you want to. And then, of course, another benefit of playtesting is finding bugs and edge cases and unexpected solutions. That last one kind of goes for having other people playtest your game too. Other people will find bugs that you probably will not. So puzzle games have an interesting problem here, though, which is metagaming, right? Metagame knowledge. So if you've designed your own puzzle, how can you like accurately playtest it, right? Playtesting your own game might make more sense if your game depends more on like dexterity. So maybe like a platform game or an action game, self playtesting would make more sense. You can at least like feel out how levels are more difficult than other levels. You can feel out the progression. But if you designed the puzzle, how do you like know if it's a good puzzle or not? You already know how to solve it, right? So of course you will find someone else to playtest it, right? And you should always be finding other people to playtest your game. But some of the same issues crop up, which is that if someone else playtests your game and then they give you feedback and you make changes, they already have this metagame knowledge, right? They're able to metagame if they play the puzzle again. So you'll have to find a new playtester and so on and so forth. And also, we're still not tapping into some of those benefits of playtesting your own game that I mentioned in the previous slide. So the way I've been like tackling this issue lately has been with random number generation and specifically randomly generated puzzles. So let's talk about RNG a little bit, random number generation. There's kind of two main methods for this, which are PRNG and TRNG. PRNG being pseudo-random number generation, where it's actually more algorithmic and based off of a random seed. This is like what computers are usually doing when generating random numbers. This is opposed to TRNG, which is like using actual analog randomness, right? So, you know, if you're rolling a die or whatever, computers can actually take in TRNG if they have special hardware. So this is pretty rare to see utilized in a video game, but like computers can do this. But the thing is, it doesn't really matter how you're generating this random number as long as it's like seemingly random, right? As long as it feels random to the developer or the player, it will work just fine. So if we define our game's variables, we take these parameters out of our game, then we can use random number generation to design puzzles for us. So I want to start this, I want to start going into some of the benefits of randomly generated puzzles, but first I kind of want to talk about how I discovered that. And it starts with the game Wordle. So I did not make Wordle. I don't. I just am a player of Wordle. I think it's a great game. It's a little game that does a lot with how little mechanics it has. So if you don't know how to play Wordle, you are basically trying to guess a secret word within 6 tries. The word will always be 5 letters, so every guess must be 5 letters, and also each guess must be part of the game's dictionary. And then every guess will get some feedback, and it will tell you if your letters are correct or in the correct position, and it will get you closer and closer to the actual solution. So when I was first playing Wordle back when it was first popping off in 2021 or 2022, um, I was playing it and I was like, this is a great game, but why do I have to wait another 24 hours to play the next puzzle, right? Wordle is released daily, so I would have to wait until tomorrow to play Wordle, right? And it was like, why do I have to do that? What if I just made my own copy of Wordle and took a dictionary that has every single possible 5-letter word that could be the solution to a Wordle puzzle? Um, and then I could have the computer just give me a Wordle puzzle, and then I would be able to play it infinitely and not have to wait at all. And so that's what I did. I made this little prototype, this tiny little Wordle game that I could just replay indefinitely. So this is basically my clone of Wordle, with the main difference being that it's not a daily game. Instead, I guess to just press that refresh button, have the computer pick a random word for me, and then I get to solve it. So if you want to play this, you cannot. You can. I never released this. This is a complete ripoff of another game. I never released this. This is Terry's Wordle, or as I call it, Tortle. So when I made this, I was really like obsessed with it because I could just play this infinitely and get all my Wordle satisfaction out. And then I was thinking, what if I made like an original game with this? Like, I love this idea that I can make like the parameters of a game and then have my computer give me a random puzzle. So I was trying all these different word games that like would give me a random puzzle to solve. And so I started making all of these prototypes. And all of these games, these prototypes that you see on this screen, they were never finished or released. They're all very early stage, like were made in probably a day or two. But they were all like really fun because I was able to test out what was feeling good and what wasn't in these different prototypes. The one on the right there, I felt like I was like really getting on, like really getting close to something that it was good. And through some more prototyping, through just playing these kind of puzzles over and over and having the computer giving me the random puzzles, I eventually settled on this design, which I developed in full, a game called Scramble. I released this in 2024 as a mobile game. It's also a daily game in the spirit of Wordle or the other New York Times or Puzzmo games. And so this game is like totally the result of just prototyping and having the computer give me these random puzzles that fit within these different prototypes until I found a design that like really worked. So yeah, this is like a 5x5 word game where you are sliding the letters around and trying to spell words using the white and yellow tiles. So let's look at some other examples of RNG puzzles. I want to highlight some here that are not just video games, but like kind of classic games that everyone will know. So like a lot of card games, like Solitaire we see here. You just shuffle the deck and you put the cards in a certain order, and suddenly you have a new puzzle. And if you want a new puzzle, you just shuffle the deck again and do it again. Same with the Rubik's Cube, right? You just start with a solved state and then scramble it up, and then you have a new puzzle. Sudokus can also be randomly generated. And then on the right there, that is a chess variant called Chess 960, where the pieces are shuffled up, like so that the initial state is not a standard initial chessboard. So yeah, there's a lot of different classic games that are already using randomly generated numbers to produce new puzzles. So let's highlight some benefits of RNG puzzles for the player, and then we'll get to the ones for the developer. So for the player, each puzzle is going to be likely entirely new to them. And also, the game will be very replayable. As I mentioned before, with my Wordle clone, I could just replay infinitely. In fact, all those prototypes, I just replayed hundreds of those puzzles until I found one that I really liked. So that was fun for me as a player of those games. And then also the raised difficulty ceiling. So basically, with a randomly generated puzzle, the player cannot innately know the solution to the puzzle. They need to solve the puzzle, right? They need to approach it with actually solving it instead of just doing the exact steps that they have already memorized. This will be like the first time of maybe a couple times in this talk that I'll mention Jonas Agree's talk from last year on procedurally generated puzzles. So I highly recommend checking that out. I'm going to borrow some terminology from that talk, like the raised difficulty ceiling. So for the benefits to the developer, the first one is that it's just easier to add content to your game, right? So I mentioned that my game Scwamble is a daily word game, and so it's really easy for me to make it a daily game because every month I just have my generator make a bunch of puzzles for me randomly, and then I go through and I pick which ones I want to be the live daily puzzles. So this actually kind of shows there's two main ways to do this adding content with RNG puzzles, and that's with procedurally generated versus hand selected. So procedurally generated would be like the puzzle is basically made at runtime, where it's like made entirely new and unique to that session. However, I do think it's a bit riskier because like the developer is not seeing the puzzle before it goes to the player, right? The player is seeing this puzzle for the first time. So it basically relies on that generation algorithm to be like perfect and airtight and make sure that it doesn't make a bad puzzle. So I prefer the hand selected. That's what I use for my game Scwamble, is that like I will step in as the developer, look at the puzzles that were generated by my generator and pick out which ones I want to go live. Of course, that involves time on my part, but it also is a bit safer. The second benefit, this kind of circles back to the playtesting we were talking about earlier, is getting distance from your own design. So if you design a puzzle, you're going to have an inherent bias, right? So if you have someone else playtest your puzzle for you, and they are having trouble solving that puzzle, you might be thinking in your brain, well, maybe they couldn't solve it because they're not familiar with the genre enough, or maybe it's a skill issue, or whatever it is. You can make up some excuse for why they can't solve the puzzle, right? However, if you designed the game and your generation algorithm made a puzzle for you and you can't solve that puzzle, that teaches you something really strong about your design, right? So like with my prototyping, some of the puzzles that it was generating for some of those early prototypes were just way too hard. And I was like, I can't guess this 7-letter word that's spelled out in a circle or something. I just can't do it. So that taught me something like really like necessary for that prototype, right? The third benefit for the developer is that it's a great tool for iteration and experimentation. So you get to play with what numbers and parameters like fit right with your game. So we talked about a Rubik's Cube earlier. So the standard size of a Rubik's Cube is 3 by 3 by 3. But of course, we know that there is like 4 by 4 by 4 cubes, and there's ones that get crazier. There's all different kinds of designs. But the reason that the 3 by 3 by 3 is the standard size is because that's a good, solid challenge for the general public, right? So that's something that the makers of the Rubik's Cube can play with and see, like, on average, how long it takes themselves to solve a 3 by 3 by 3 cube or a 4 by 4 by 4. So for my word games, I was able to play with this, right? With my Wordle clone, I could see, like, what happens if I make it a 6-letter word or a 4-letter word, and how does that impact it, right? Why are we, like, settling Wordle on a 5-letter word game? Well, that's probably because 5 letters works best. So that can be a great tool for iteration. Also, it's fun to use combinatorial math and count the possibilities because these numbers get enormous very fast, like uncountably, unfathomably enormous. So a classic example is the 52 deck of cards, standard deck of cards. There are 52 factorial ways to shuffle that deck of cards. And 52 factorial is equal to this insane number at the bottom of the screen. It's like 80 unvegetillion. It's kind of ridiculous that it even has a name because it's just like unimaginably large. It's insanely big. There are so many ways that like so many things that can come out of just a small sample set of the 52 deck of cards, right? The final benefit I want to go over for RNG puzzles for the developer is guaranteeing a solution. So this is like sort of a benefit, but it also can be something that you need to be careful about. So with randomly generated puzzles, you want to make sure that your puzzle has a solution, right? So I'm also going to borrow some of Jonas Agree's terminology here from last year, which is the puzzle up approach and the solution down approach. So the puzzle up approach involves having a puzzle solver look for a solution, perhaps look for all solutions, until it finds one, and then it can guarantee that that puzzle has a solution. This is opposed to the solution down approach, where you start with the solution and you use RNG to unsolve the puzzle. So of these two methods, I really prefer the latter, solution down. That's what I use for Scramble. That's what I used for all of those word game prototypes that I showed earlier. It's also what a Rubik's Cube uses, right? Think about starting with a solved Rubik's Cube. It's perfectly solved. And then you unsolve it. You scramble it up. That guarantees that there's a solution to the puzzle because you started with the solution and you backtracked from there, right? So there's guaranteed to be a way back to the solution. So yeah, it's worth noting that you should be careful about computation if you're doing something like a puzzle up approach, especially if it's a procedurally generated puzzle. And also, it's worth noting that not all puzzle games do guarantee a solution. So we looked at Solitaire earlier. If you're playing Solitaire with just a regular deck of cards, like a physical deck of cards, then not every shuffle will guarantee a solution. Personally, I think that's kind of a flaw with Solitaire's design. Like, I kind of want to know as a player that my puzzle will be solvable, but I don't know, maybe other players disagree. Maybe other players want the risk of having a puzzle that's unsolvable. So it's something to keep in mind. If you're playing Solitaire on a computer, then maybe the computer will guarantee a solution. But if you're playing with just a regular deck of cards, then not so much. So if you're inspired to start experimenting with randomly generated puzzles, I think a great place to start is word games. So I showed all my word games earlier. There was actually like more prototypes. I think there was like 10 different prototypes that I went to before settling on my design that I liked the most. And I think word games are a great genre for this space because language is large, well-established, and challenging, right? So English, by its most restrictive measures, has like 150,000 words. Some experts will say that it has 1 million words or more, but like even if it just has 150,000, that's still a lot, right? Also, their languages are well established, so people use words a lot, right? So that makes your game very approachable, right? Word games have a very large audience that spans generations, right? And that's so cool to be able to have your game be approachable by such a wide audience. But also language is tricky and challenging because spelling can be inconsistent and weird. I think that's actually what makes English a really great language for word games, is that English is like super inconsistent with its spelling. Not everything is phonetic. In fact, like quite the opposite. English is like all over the place. That makes it like a really great thing to have like tricky puzzles. Word games are also great for rapid prototyping, right? All of those prototypes that you saw, like they look pretty simple, right? They're just like choose a cool font and make some shapes, right? Actually, I think there was a talk yesterday on newspaper games talking about how this is like a new, or not a new, but like actually a pretty old like style of games that is like being sort of having the second wind of popularity. And also, word games are not the only place to like be to be like using these techniques with. I also encourage you to look at like other pre-established spaces like card games, chess games. Sokobans could be randomly generated. Sudoku, we said. I think it's really great to like think about games in this like established sense, and then think about how you can play and experiment with those to like make those puzzles randomly generated, or to see what like you can tweak about those designs to make a new game entirely. So thank you all for listening. That's my talk. If you want to reach out to me, I have my website here, and it has links to my social media and whatnot. So I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Terry. Wonderful talk. You happy to take some questions?
I would be happy to.
Questions?
Yeah.
Awesome. So first question here, a bit of a. Oh, actually, I wanted to quickly mention as well. The whole thing about Rubik's cubes being equivalent to the solution down approach, I had never thought of. It's such a simple observation. I had never thought of when you said it. I was like, oh yeah, it is just that.
Yeah, like finding out that you can just have your like computer or a physical object make a random puzzle and like start at the solution and just work backwards from there. That was like a revelation for me for prototyping.
It's quite a common approach for, I've seen implementations of, the 15 puzzle sliding puzzles, like where you have to slide the image around to make an image.
Yeah, right.
Like start with the image and then slide them around, because if you do it completely randomly, there are configurations that are not solvable. But it's also possible. Right. I think the rule is if you have an unsolvable configuration, you can just swap 2 tiles and it becomes solvable. I think that's how it works. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, I thought that was a very cool point. So first, slightly silly question. So you mentioned that you were playing Wordle and you were annoyed that you couldn't play it more than once per day.
Yeah, sure.
Then you made your own daily puzzle game.
Yeah.
Do you know if anybody has been annoyed at your game and decided to make a version of it where they can play it more than once per day?
That's a great question. I love that question. I'm not going to say please clone my game, but that's awesome, right? Because that's totally what I did, right? Is it's maybe it's sort of like the necessity breeds innovation, right? Or like constraint breeds creativity or whatever, right? Where if you like this game enough to where you want to make it yourself and get over and basically like do my generator algorithm for me, I can't stop you. By all means.
It would also feel like passing the torch, and then that person is going through the same process you've gone through, and then they'll do a talk at ThinkyCon next year.
It's a never-ending cycle.
Exactly. All right. So we also got a question here from Jack Griff in the chat. Does the elegance of solution down approach make you avoid designing games that might require the puzzle up approach?
That's a good question. Like I really haven't made a game that uses that approach yet. I remember Jagroff gave the talk in the first day, I think, right? About the having a puzzle solver.
Yep.
I have not made a game that like uses that yet. All these prototypes have been starting with the solution and working backwards from there.
Sure.
Just because I think that's like a lot. That was a lot easier for my brain to work with, and I think it really lends itself to word games, which I was like really trying to focus on.
Like, so it's interesting that a lot of your prototypes are about kind of re-piecing together words, and so it's easy to see how those are better suited to starting with a word and scrambling it in some way.
That's right. Yeah. I would love to start making a game that uses a puzzle solver, like the puzzle up approach. I think that is a really interesting space. I think I'm maybe like getting a little tired of like, now that I've made my word game, I've done all the prototypes, I want to like try using these techniques with other kinds of games. So I think I'll be looking into that soon.
Cool. That might be next. Awesome. So here's another question for you.
Sure.
So I think this is generally true in the kind of puzzle world in general, but particularly I'm thinking about in the paper puzzle space, like the Sudokus and all the other amazing like Akari and Nurukabe, which we had to talk about the other day, etc. All these logic puzzles. There's like a kind of sense of, well, yeah, sure. In the airport, you can find these like Sudoku books that are full of Sudokus, but they're all like randomly generated, and they end up not being as interesting as a handcrafted Sudoku, because a handcrafted Sudoku could have like a more intentional design behind it, leading the player through certain deductions. How do you think about that in relation to the games that you've made, and do you think it applies? Is there something different about word games that makes it different, or?
I do think that there is room for both. I think there was also a bit of discussion on this yesterday with the newspaper games talk. I think there is room for both randomly generated puzzles and and handcrafted ones.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, with Scramble, like what I did was I have the dailies be randomly generated, but there's also like puzzle packs that come with the game that are like handcrafted. Like me and my partner wrote those together, and like, so like there's a bit of both in the game, because it is good to have that balance. And I'm never going to say that like a randomly generated puzzle is going to be better than one crafted by a human. But I guess I think of this as specifically a good tool for prototyping, right? A good tool for playtesting your own game and seeing what works. And then it's kind of up to you to decide, is the average puzzle that's generated better or worse or just as good as that of a human, right?
Great answer, thank you. This has also reminded me. I want to make a quick shout out to. He's been in the chat on occasion, and is just well known in the Thinky puzzle space. Marcos Don in 20, who's made a bunch of great puzzle games. And there's something interesting about looking at his games, from Despontivus to A Slug's Dream, I think was the most recent one, because he started. I think Despontivus is like completely procedurally generated, and then in each one he's taken a slightly different approach, and then the next one there's like some more like hand-picked puzzles, and then the next one is a slightly different approach, and then I think A Slug's Dream is like fully handcrafted, if I remember correctly. So it's funny, like it's great to have this like one. You just go to Marcus's itch page and see this full like spectrum of like from fully procedurally generated to not, and that whole thing.
Yeah. That's a cool progression. Yeah. No, I think it's great to have both. Like, it helps you experiment and try new things, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's cool to see. Oh, there's another question that's come through. We'll try and squeeze that in. In fact, we've got a break next, so I can definitely squeeze this in.
Cool.
So from Sylvester, question here: did you run into any interesting edge cases using RNG for the Squamble?
I heard it pronounced both ways. Some people pronounce it Squamble, some pronounce it Scramble. I'm happy with both. It was supposed to be a portmanteau of square and scramble.
That's what I got from it. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I'm happy with Squamble.
Okay, cool.
So the question was, any edge cases that came up?
Yeah.
Let's see. I think like so I had this slide where I like talked about the different prototypes that led to that game, and that one on the right is like the closest to it, where basically like I'm trying to have one letter that's consistent through 5 words, and then you like are trying to guess the letters around it. What I found here was like what was annoying about this is that there's so many letters that appear in like one specific position of a word. For instance, the letter J in a 5-letter word like always appears at the beginning. Like not exclusively, there are words like enjoy or something that where the J appears like halfway through. Sure. But like I wanted something that would like really have like a nice ability to like showcase a bunch of different letters. Yeah. So like I was happy with Scramble's design, that I was able to like, here's like a missing position from every part of the word, right? Every index of the word. So there wasn't so much edge cases. Oh, I guess the one thing also I will say, this kind of gets into procedurally generated versus hand selected. I do have my algorithm able to catch any things that I don't want presented to the game. So for example, if there's any like offensive words, or if there's any like potential for an offensive word, the like solver will like find that and like flag that as like this puzzle like cannot go live, right? So like it's that's like one of the reasons that I'm saying that procedural generation is riskier, is because like, you know, if there's something that I didn't think of, I want to be able to like see my puzzle before it goes live. So I like have tried my best to make my algorithm like able to catch anything. But yeah, so there's always things that could come up.
So there was another comment in the chat a bit earlier that wasn't phrased as a question, but it's connected to what you were just talking about. So I think I'll ask it as a question, which is that they were mentioning that the solution down approach, like working backwards from the solution, it guarantees that there is a solution, but doesn't necessarily guarantee that there is only one. How do you handle that? Do you like in Scramble? How do you ensure that there aren't other solutions there?
That is a great question. I tried to make it a feature, not a bug. That's one way to go about it.
Yeah.
So with Scramble, you can see like once you get a word, that little green square lights up in the top left. It tells you that there's 5 words to solve. But there's also those little purple squares in the top right of the screen. Those are bonus words. So those are basically words that my solver like found. Like it basically did every permutation of all of these letters and found 3 extra words that are not part of the solution, right? And so if you are able to find them, then you get a bonus point. And so basically, once I discovered that, like, yeah, no, there are going to be words that you can make that will not be part of the solution. I'm like, maybe I just lean into that. I could make a generator that like only makes it so that there's like one exact solution and no extra words, but I thought this was kind of fun to make the little bonus word thing. So
that's fun. You're basically doing a solution down approach to begin with, and then what was the other type?
You're so right. Puzzle up approach. I never really thought about that, but yeah, no, you're totally right. No, I start with the solution down approach, and then I do all permutations to see if there is extra things to be found.
And have you ever had a situation? Sorry, I'm now just like digging into this completely. Have you ever had a situation where there are so many bonus words that it's like it would clutter the UI with purple dots or something? Yeah.
That's right. Actually, the generator caps it at 5.
I see.
5 bonus words.
And so
sometimes there would be like 12 or something.
And so you're saying it would reject that as a possible puzzle?
That's right.
Yes, I see. Okay, cool, awesome.
That's right. It would basically like throw that out. Like there's a few like things that would just throw out, right? So if it finds that it can generate an offensive word, it's going to throw that out. If it finds that it can generate more than 5 bonus words, it will throw that out. Great. And it will just go on to the next thing.
Perfect, thanks. People in the comments saying impromptu interview, go. Turned into an interview. We will leave it there though, folks. I personally need a break because it's like what we've been doing is like 2 hours in each section at least. So it's a break for me as much as it's a break for everybody else. So any further questions, please take them to the Discord as per usual, thinkygames.com/Discord. I believe the thread is already made. Let me double check that. It is. So I'm sure Terry will be around to answer those questions. So thank you once again, Terry, and we'll head over to another break right now.
Thanks.